Hi everyone, hope you're all doing well, and today we're going to be looking at mainlines. More specifically for perch fishing applications, we're going to look at mono, fluoro and braid. We'll look at what properties these lines have, what I use them for based on my experiences, and hopefully help you pick the right line for you. Choosing the right main line is really important. If you are going to be doing lots of top water fishing throughout the summer, then fluorocarbon is probably not going to be the best option for you because the line sinks. And if you're going to be doing lots of bottom contact techniques, then mono is not going to be the best option because it has got so much stretch in it. It's not going to give you the same sort of bite indications of, let's say, a braid. So we're going to take a look at all of that today, and hopefully you'll take something out of this video. So starting off with mono, it is a line that I have used a lot over the last few years. I have sort of gone back on it a little bit where I use it more as a leader material rather than a main line. If you are going to use it for a main line, it does have some really good applications. Top water fishing, because most of mono is floating or neutrally buoyant, it's a really good option for top water baits. More specifically on top water baits with treble hooks. So if I'm using poppers or I'm using a water dog style bait, then mono can be a really good option. The reason is because you're using treble hooks. If you are using a braided main line and you've got a fairly stiff rod, quite a fast action rod, you can lose a lot of fish through hook pulls. Now we're using a mono main line. It just acts as a bit of a buffer. I always use the example as with mono, to an extent fluorocarbon, but not quite as much. It acts almost like a pole elastic when you're playing a fish. It just absorbs everything because of the stretch that it has in it. So if you are using poppers, water dog style baits, mono can be a really good option. One really good thing about mono is you can buy huge bulk spools at a really good price. It is a cost effective line. It's what I use as well to bulk all of my reels out when I'm spooling them up with an expensive braid or even a fluorocarbon. I do like to buy big bulk spools of mono just to use as backing. So it is a very cost effective line. And again, so if you are using, especially if you're under a budget and you want to get into top water fishing, mono is a really good option. Another good application for it as well is, again, I use it for leader material. If you are fishing and you visibility sort of 2 foot or under, it can be a really good leader material for crankbaits. Again, for the same reason as the top water lures, is because it has got so much stretch in it. It can just stop you losing those really big fish. I went through a phase a few years ago when I was using braid as a main line with a fluorocarbon leader to a wire trace, and when I was crankbaiting, I lost quite a lot of big fish, some really big perch on crankbaits. I now tend to use fluorocarbon as a main line when I'm cranking. But if you are using a braided main line with a mono hook link, that can be a really effective way of crankbait fishing. And most people will use fluorocarbon as the leader material, but don't discount mono. You know, if I'm fishing in clear water, I'll still use fluorocarbon, but mono can be a really good option. It's another good option for if you're jerk bait fishing as well, especially if you're getting into jerk baits, because sort of that technique of sort of whacking the slack, until you sort of really have perfected how to do that, monofilament can be a good option for that because you have so much stretch in it. So it does absorb some of those really sharp jerks that you do with the rod. So it can, you know, if you are starting out and you want to get into jerk bait fishing, things like that, mono can be, it's an underrated main line, can be very good for that. Again, it's not a line that I tend to use anymore in my fishing as a main line. I say I use it for backing and I use it for leader material. But again, if you are under a budget, mono has got some really good applications in lure fishing, especially on treble hook baits. The downside to mono is it has got quite a high diameter and it is very springy. It's got a very high line memory. So it can be a little bit annoying at times. But again, for leader material, I really do rate mono, especially again for treble hook baits. So where I definitely wouldn't use mono is for any bottom contact fishing. So anything like Texas rigs, Cheb rigs, things like that. you're going to need a little bit of power to be able to set those to set the hook. And with the amount of stretch you've got there, you are going to miss a few fish. And because it has got so much stretch, you're going to probably miss a few bites as well. So I wouldn't use it for any bottom contact fishing. Any bottom contact fishing at all. And for top water fishing with soft plastic floating lures that you rig on like a weedless hook, an EWG, I wouldn't use it as a main line then either, because of the amount of stretch you've got. Some of the soft plastic floating baits that I use, I'm using 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, sometimes even a 5.0 on some of the baits as well. And there's just too much stretch there to be able to set those hooks. So in that case, I would use a very short mono leader with a braided main line. But I think that sort of covers mono in like my personal fishing anyway. And now we're going to take a look at fluoro. So in recent years, fluorocarbon has become my favourite main line. I'll use this for everything now other than top water fishing or fishing at extreme range. Now, it's not a user-friendly line in comparison to some of the other lines that you can use. I will get the negative stuff out of the way with it first. It can be a challenging line to use, especially on fixed ball setups. On BFS gear, which I used to use this all the time on, never had no issues with it at all. But spinning gear, it can give you a few issues. When you are spooling it up, what I do like to do, not boiling water, but just hot water out the tap, I will soak these spools for a good 10-15 minutes before I put them on a reel. And it just softens it up. In my opinion, it goes on the reel a bit nicer. And when you do spool the reel up, I would underspool it ever so slightly. Again, the reason for that is if you were to spool it right to the edge of the lip, you can get like coils of it springing off, and it can cause you a few issues. And it's frustrating at the end of the day. Line twist is another factor you can get with fluorocarbon. It's one of those. It's pros and cons with fluoro. There are, for every pro there is with using it as a main line, there is always going to be a negative when it comes to using it on spinning tackle. But the pros, in my opinion, really do outweigh the cons, which we will get into. But when it comes to what ones to use, I've used some really expensive fluorocarbon as main line. I've spent 40-50 quid on spools, but I always go back to Seaguar, either the real soft, which is $12.99 a spool, really, really good value for money. I always look, from, in my opinion, for my fishing, that sort of 0.16 in diameter is the sweet spot. In the real soft, it's £4. There is one that you can get. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I will link it in the description, which is another Seaguar one, which is £25 a spool. So it is double the price, but you are still getting an 0.16 diameter line, but it's £6.5 breaking strain rather than the 4. So depending on what one you want, I really do recommend both of those. I really like them. Like I say, I've spent a lot more money than $12.99 before on spools of fluoro, and I still come back to this because I think it is really good. Now, why I like fluorocarbon, you've got as a main line, you've got the obvious ones like no leader knots. Not an issue in the summer, but when it is freezing cold in the winter, I don't want to be sat on the bank tying really fiddly leader knots. So that is an obvious bonus. The other one as well, if you are fishing in clear water, you've got a line that is very, very low in visibility in water. It's, in my opinion, that is a massive confidence booster for me. I fish certain venues, especially around here in the summer, that are like tap water, using fluoro as a main line. Whether it makes a difference or not, again, no way of knowing, but it makes a difference in my head, which is massive for my confidence. Now, the main reason why I like fluorocarbon, or why I switched from braid to fluoro, is because of the noise factor. Now, even if you get a real high quality 16 strand braid, which is incredibly smooth, it is still going to make some kind of a noise when you're retrieving it on the rod rings, and that noise will transfer down the line. Does it make a difference? Does it put fish off? The amount of people that use braid as a main line and catch hundreds and hundreds of fish, it's not going to ruin your fishing, obviously. But does this make a difference when you're fishing for really pressured fish? I feel that I get more bites on a fluorocarbon main line, but again, is that just a mental placebo for me that gives me that confidence? Possibly. But fluoro, it is perfectly smooth, and it's going to be a quieter main line than braid. And for that reason, again, it just gives me a massive amount of confidence in using fluoro, even all the problems that you can have with it, with the line twist and things like that. I really do like fluorocarbon. Now, I will use this for literally everything short to medium range. Why I wouldn't use it for long range was a fish that I lost back end of the season. I was fishing much heavier than what I would normally use, but it was to get the range. And I hooked a really big fish, potentially a personal best, right at the back of the cast, right as it fell down, a couple of twitches of the rod, and then bang, it was on. And it stayed on all the way until it was more or less under the rod tip, and then it come off. So shortly after that smaller fish earlier on, dropped onto this one. Really, really beautiful fish, really well marked. It's got a few scars on it. So yeah, really happy with this one. Again, just on a free running Texas rig, but it's going to take a considerable amount of boots, I think, to get over that one we lost earlier. It's probably 2 pound bigger than this one. But yeah, still really pleased with this one, but it could have been so much better. But we have got a bigger one, so we'll show you that one next. If I was using a braided mainline, would I have got a better hook set on that when that fish hit? Possibly. Fluorocarbon does have quite a lot of stretch in it, nowhere near as much as mono, but it still does have some stretch in it. Now, like I say, for fishing at extreme range with weedless setups, that particular fish that I lost was on a Texas rig. Again, if I'd had braid, I wouldn't have had the stretch in the line. I may have been able to get that fish to stick just long enough for me to net it. So yeah, for long range, I would probably still go with a braid, but for medium to short range, I think fluorocarbon is an excellent lure, an excellent mainline. I will use it for all of my treble hook applications, apart from top water, because it does have that bit of stretch in it. So, like, again, nowhere near as much as mono, but it is. It does absorb them like big head shakes you get from the big perch. And I don't lose as many fish on straight fluorocarbon as what I used to lose on braid to fluoro leader. So it is, again, really, really effective on cranking, things like that, again, in my opinion. If you do need to get if you are crankbait fishing and you want to get your crankbait down to its maximum diving depth as quick as possible, then potentially a braid might be a better option, but we'll cover that when we talk about braid. But yeah, I can't recommend fluorocarbon enough for short to medium range work. I really like it. It's incredibly abrasion resistant. Short term, it's going to be cost effective, especially if you go for this particular mainline. Long term, it is going to be more expensive, because if you get a good quality braid, that might last you for a couple of seasons. If you're using fluorocarbon, me personally, and again, I do probably overanalyze my fishing sometimes. I do change my mainline a lot. I'll probably get through one of these maybe every 3 to 4 weeks. I do change my line that much. But again, with fluorocarbon, if you are using it straight, one little nick in that line when you're snagging up, rather than snapping at the knot or on the leader, you might potentially snap, your line might go near the rod tip. So you're losing potentially 30 yards of line every time you snap off. So I do keep respooling quite frequent. So long term, this is going to cost you a lot more than if you went for a braid, but short term, it is going to be a cheaper option. I think that is about it for fluorocarbon. Again, I know I've talked it up a lot, but that's just because of how much confidence I've got in it. It very much, I think this as a main line on spinning tackle is going to be Marmite. You're either going to take to it and really like the advantages this is going to potentially give you, or if you do have issues with it, if you just can't deal with the line twist, then you're going to hate it. But if you've never used it as a main line, it's definitely worth giving it a go, just to see how you get on with it. But yeah, I think that is about it. If there's anything else that you want to know about using fluorocarbon as a main line, again, just drop it in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can with that. So finishing off with braid, this is definitely going to be your most versatile option. If you are someone that likes to travel with just 1 or maybe 2 setups, braid is going to be your best option for you, because it does allow you to be able to do everything from bottom contact fishing all the way up to top water fishing. The only thing you'll need is a spool of fluorocarbon and a spool of mono for leader material in your tackle bag, and you're away to go. Now, when it comes to choosing the correct braid for you, you've got 4 strand, you've got 8 strand and above. Basically what that means is the more strands that are in a braid, the more fibers that are in it. The more fibers that are in it, what you're going to end up with is a smoother, more supple braid, and it's going to be a bit more rounder in profile. So if you're fishing, let's say, crankbaits, and you want to get that bait to its maximum diving depth as soon as possible, an 8 strand or above braid is going to be a good option for you, because it tends to be a little bit thinner in diameter. It's going to cut through the water really nicely, and that crankbait is going to be its maximum diving depth a little bit quicker than if you was using a fluorocarbon main line, or potentially even a 4 strand braid, because 4 strand does tend to be most of the time a little bit thicker in diameter. And the same as if you're fishing at range, an 8 strand or above is going to be a better option, again, because it's just going to be a little bit rounder, a bit smoother, and it's going to cast a bit nicer as well. And the 8 strands and above braid are going to be a bit quieter as well. Like we spoke about earlier with the fluorocarbon, pressured fish, I would definitely go for an 8 strand or above for that reason. When it comes to 4 strand, even though it's going to be a little bit flatter in profile, and they do tend to be, on average at least, a little bit thicker, what 4 strand braid is really good for, it's made up of less fibers, but the fibers tend to be thicker. So what you end up with is a really durable mainline. So if you are fishing around structure, it can be a really good option to go for that, because of that, the durability that you do tend to get on a 4 strand braid. I used to use it a lot when I was punching through duckweed. When you get duckweed, you often get branches and things like that in amongst it as well. So you do often get little nicks on the line. 4 strand braid is what I used to use a lot. I now use fluorocarbon for that, but 4 strand is a great option for that. When it comes to choosing a braid, you can spend a lot of money on it. 4 strand does tend to be fairly cheap. So again, if you are fishing around structure, it is a bit of a win-win, because you can go and spend less than 10 quid on a spool of 4 strand. You can spend a lot of money on braid though. Things like YGK, £45 a spool for an 8 strand, but that stuff is really good. But when it comes to a real good quality 8 strand braid at a cost effective price, personally, I really do like the new 8 strand gunky fight braid. This is the stuff that I was using during the lure battle final at Linear. It cast really well, and it was very smooth to the touch as well. So I think 20 quid for 135 meters that potentially could last you multiple seasons, I think that's a real bargain, that. And the other things with braid as well is that you've got these really brightly coloured lines. That can be a pro and it can be a con. If you're fishing in clear water, this is why I use fluorocarbon leaders that are 10 to 12 foot long, because I want that as far away from my lure as possible. Where this really does help though is keeping a visual on where your lure, or even where the fish is that you've just hooked, is in your swim. There was one incident this last winter. I was playing a really big fish and I almost lost it. Really gloomy day, it was raining, it was windy. I'm on fluorocarbon and it's dived underneath some structure, and I completely lost where the line was. Now, if I was using braid, I would have been in that situation in the first place. So that visibility aspect is a real positive in most cases when it comes to braid. The only downside is in clear water, but again, you can combat that by using a much longer leader. The other great thing about braid as well, it has absolutely zero stretch. So when it comes to bite detection, you're not going to beat braid. Any knock whatsoever that you get on braid, you do tend to feel it. Really, really good for bite detection. And when it comes to choosing a leader knot, if you are going to use braid as a main line, because leader knots then become very important, things like the FG knot is going to be the strongest. And if you can tie that well and you can tie it quickly, then by all means use that knot. What I would recommend though is picking a knot and practicing with one that you can tie quickly and consistently, even in the winter. There's nothing worse than trying to tie a complex leader knot when you can't feel your fingers. I use the Alberta knot personally. That's not because it's the best knot. It's the knot that I can tie the quickest and most consistently, even in the winter. That's why I use that particular knot. So that would be what I would recommend. Definitely choose a knot that you can tie consistently, and then just keep using that one, rather than messing about with really complex leader knots that you might make a mistake in the winter and then lose the fish if the knot gives way because it's not been tied quite correctly. So consistency is definitely the most important thing when it comes to leader knots, in my opinion. So again, I think that is about it. Braid is definitely the one to go for if you want versatility. Fluorocarbon is what I would use for all of my bottom contact fishing. Any crankbaits or jerkbait fishing, I will use fluorocarbon. In fact, I'll use that for everything other than top water fishing or fishing at range. Mono, again, for top water fishing, it can be really good as long as you're using treble hook baits. Bit of an underrated main line, in my opinion, but personally, I think mono works best as a leader material. But again, that's just my opinion. But I think that is about it. Anything that you feel like I've missed out or any questions you have, just drop it in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Cheers.